Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Week 14 preview, brought to you in association with our partner QuinnBet. 4 teams on a bye this weekend: the 49ers, the Giants, the Patriots, and the Panthers. This is incidentally the last bye week. After this weekend, it's a full 16-game slate all the way to Week 18. We have 14 games this weekend. That kicks off later tonight at time of recording with a big one, the NFC playoff race, where the Cowboys make the trip to the Motor City to take on the Detroit Lions. We start, though, on the weekend action with the 6 o'clock window, where the Cincinnati Bengals travel to play the Bills, Kieran. And the Bills will be one of those teams now looking at the schedule going, damn, we had this one penciled in for a W. Joe Burrow came back, shredded the Ravens last week. This one might be a little bit closer than we had been thinking before, but the Bills are still 5.5-point favorites. So the bookie's not exactly giving huge credit to the returning Joe Burrow, because he's still got to contend with that putrid Bengals defense.
Yeah, a lot of different storylines with this. I mean, obviously, very few teams in the league take on the identity of the quarterback like the Bengals do when Joe Burrow is there. It's night and day when the two of them are separated. Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like most of the talk this week has been about the Bengals and how they're going to make a run, and there's been less talk about the Bills and what they have done and what they could do, because for all intents and purposes, December is the Bills' month. January, not so much, but December is when they make those charges into the playoffs and make those runs. Obviously, again, the home splits are much different right now. I mean, they're much stronger at home. Obviously, weather's going to be a factor. It's going to be snowy, as it has been all the way up in the Northeast and the northern part of the country all week, and continuing into, obviously we're in December football now, but they're 18-3 in December since 2020. And like I said, January, they've got to figure that part out. Maybe this is going to be the year. But the Bengals, I mean, like I said, Bengals, a lot of the talk has been on them with Burrow. T. Higgins is still a question about his availability. I think he's in the concussion protocol. But I mean, are we really going to look at the Bengals making another run and make another kind of repeat of 2024, where every game in December is a playoff game and they just max out what Joe Burrow has? I think this, to me, you know, obviously the Bengals are at 5.5. It'll probably go 6-point favorite at this stage, and I think they're good value for that. They're at home. The weather factor.
So we got to remember, Kieran, as much as you talked about the Bills in December, the Bengals ripped off 5 wins in a row just when everybody thought they were dead last year. So what's to say they don't do it again this year?
Well, the problem is they're 4-8 and the Bills are 8-4. I mean, they're in absolute win. I mean, they're in win mode from last month even. So,
yeah. But they're also 4-8 in a division where 9-8 might actually get it done.
Yeah, and that's the other crazy storyline. I mean, nobody wants to win this division. But for me, I mean, the main difference for me is going to be you're going to look at that shaky Bengals defense, and you look at who's back there with the ball in his hands. James Cook, who ran for 144 last week. I mean, that's with pretty bad weather conditions forecast. I don't think the Bills are going to be throwing the ball all that much. It's going to be Allen on the ground. It's going to be a whole lot of Cook on the ground, and they're just going to be cooking in December like they usually do. And I think the Bengals, I mean, they're going to obviously put up a huge fight. I think they're going to max out what players they have left. Trey Hendrickson is not going to be playing, I don't think. But I don't think I'm ready to believe that the Bengals could go on this magical run and somehow come from 4-8 or even 3-8 and make this run and somehow win the division. I do like them to keep it close. It's probably going to be a 6 or 5-point difference in the end. But for me, the Bills have too much power, really, when you think about it. They got too much weapons on offense. The defense, while they're not great against the run, but is Chase Brown that guy who's really going to gash you for 100+ yards? They're not great against the pass, but I mean, with we got a question mark over Higgins, and it's Jamar Chase or Higgins, really. Maybe a little bit of Yoshi Vash if he's around, but for me, it's that factor. It's James Cook with the ball in his hand, and it's Allen on the ground, and the Bengals can't stop anybody. So I would expect that to be the case on Sunday.
Shane, do you see any upturn in the Bengals' fortunes because it's a Joe show, or is it going to be the Bills getting it done, as they tend to, as Kieran has pointed out, at this time of the year in the cold?
I definitely see an upturn in their play, but I'm not quite sure if we're going to see an upturn in results. It's interesting. I think somebody put in permutations for this coming weekend that suggested that even 8-9 could be good enough for the Bengals if both the Ravens and the Steelers also finish in 8-9, because I think in whatever permutations that are coming ahead, the Bengals would end up getting head-to-head over that. But I think the one thing about the Bengals, the fact that when Joe Burrow's in there, the rest of the squad does seem to believe more. And it's interesting because in his absence, quarterback play wasn't necessarily the biggest problem. It was defensive play, it was offensive line play. That's been the Achilles heel. It's not like, when Tua is taken out of a Miami Dolphins setup, for example, when the bad quarterback play completely makes everything else fall apart. This is but there's something about his presence which just makes everyone else tune up a little bit more. That said, if you actually look at the performance last week on Thanksgiving, the Ravens bin that game. So many of the turnovers, I think, was as a result of quite boneheaded plays from their point of view. Fair play for the Bengals to make an account, getting those 5 turnovers. You have to be in the right place at the right time. But some of that is based on smarts as well. But again, if you look at the Bengals defense in particular, the games they've played the best are against their divisional opponents. And I think sometimes this is a case where familiarity masks just lack of general awareness and preparedness that you have. And you're going into Buffalo now in a game which the people who control the TV originally had this in the late window. They've moved us to the early window because they weren't expecting this to be the ding-dong battle between Joe Burrow and Josh Allen that we were promised when everything came out at the start, even though that is where we're going to get. But I agree with Kieran. I think Josh Allen probably isn't going to have a whole lot to say about this. Bills going to run the ball, and that Cincy defense probably isn't going to be able to handle it. So I'm expecting the Bills to be relatively comfortable here, even if the Bengals get a couple of nice deep throws throughout the game here and make things relatively interesting, especially with T. Higgins giving a possible return. They might keep it entertaining, but the Bills will win.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think you've summed it up really nicely there, and as both of you have said, provided that the Bills don't get cute here and they do what they should have been doing all along, which is just run the hell out of the football and let James cook, I think they will carry the day. Over in MetLife, the Dolphins take on the Jets. The Dolphins off a bye, doing what John Gruden suggested that they might do and just sneakily going on a bit of a run here because they got a soft schedule. Jets, to be fair to them, are still playing for Aaron Glenn despite the trades, despite their up and down fortunes. They did manage to squeak out a win against the Falcons last week, who are one of the teams, as Kieran likes to call them, the Jets of the South, who tend to emulate the Jets' futility in their own charming Southern way. And the Dolphins arrive into this one as 3-point favourites. Everything still doesn't look right in Miami. Myself and Brian got an up-close look at them before the bye when they played in Madrid, and they squeaked one out against the Commanders in a game that nobody seems to want to win, and everyone was trying their best to lose. That went to overtime and was a mercy killing in the end with that Dolphins field goal to take the day. Bit of talk this week about footwork and the value of footwork in the Dolphins offense from their offensive coordinator, and subtly maybe making a few digs at Tua Tagovailoa and his failure to progress. But I still think the Dolphins look good for this one on the road. You just can't trust the Jets. They happen to play a team that you can trust even less than the Jets at times last week. So that explains their victory there. The Dolphins I see as being just about value for this 3-point spread that favours them, and I think they will win. Shane?
Just about value for 3 points, I think, is the perfect way to sum it up, because that's just the way it is coming into this particular team. It's funny, we were off air to talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm. My favorite bits in it is a friend of Larry David that always talks about the Jets and how they were always the disappointment. Oh, the disappointment. And it's funny because there were no Jets fans in MetLife to see them win last week. What's going on there? And I'm assuming that will be relatively similar again this week, even though they're bringing out the nice threads. And that divisional rivalry always brings out something different in that matchup. This is a case of a movable object facing against a stoppable force, because we have Tua Tagovailoa, who's the leader of interceptions in the league, and he's taken 7 sacks in 2 games. Come up against a Jets defense that, as much as I think it has played a lot of situations well, hasn't been able to get a single interception all season. So far, we are 13 weeks through the season. They have 0 interceptions.
How is that even possible?
I don't know.
A remarkable stat. I can't believe that's the first time I'm hearing that.
Yeah, I saw it on the NFL preview video.
Even one drop into your hands like a tipped ball or something by this stage. What are the odds?
And it's not like the defense is completely awful in the way their offense has been for many points of the year. And the thing is, as well, there are reasons to believe that maybe Tyrod Taylor, if let's say, for example, if they did get a turnover and they had a chance to punish in the red zone.
I got to give you credit there. The phrase "reason to believe" and Tyrod Taylor has not been in close proximity for as long as anyone can remember.
he got the win last week, against the Atlanta Falcons. If the Miami Dolphins put up a pretty bad situation, the problem is Miami I think are going to come in smart, not trust the ball to Tua to throw it, and trust the ball to Achane to run it. And this is a Jets run defense which isn't very strong, as it's shown last week against the Falcons. That was actually a real weakness that the Falcons should have pounced on more, but they made a mess of a few different play calls. So I think Devon Achane is going to end up running for 150 yards this week and scoring 2 touchdowns, and the Dolphins just about pull away with a victory here.
Kieran, pick 'em.
Well, you know where I'm going to go with this one. Give me the Fins.
All right, good stuff. A battle of the birds next as the Seahawks, Kieran, travel to Atlanta to take on the Dirty Birds, the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, you got two teams going in vastly different directions. One team is soaring and excelling, soaring using that bird phrase or that bird metaphor. The Seahawks are, I mean, we all know what they are. They're a powerhouse right now. They're humming on all sides, and even special teams. Falcons, on the other hand, I mean, we're getting to the stage now where teams are almost praying for a Tommy DeVito moment where they can just get asses in seats and sell some extra popcorn, because the Falcons are dreadful right now. They've slid precipitously in the last 6 weeks, where again they pretend to be pretenders and then they do what they do. I mean, they're a pretty bad team, despite the fact that they've got one of the best kind of attacking players in the game in Bijan Robinson. Obviously the only chance they have in this game is a whole lot of Bijan Robinson. And can anybody see him run on this Seattle defense? And the answer is probably no. So it's a huge task for the Falcons. They're going up against a team that is just stacked from top to bottom, and they don't even need a quarterback or somebody like Smith and Jigba to put up huge numbers like we saw last week, where the game basically just was handed over to the defense and the offense just took a day off. I mean, that was a phenomenal performance. 5 takeaways by that D last week, albeit against, I'd hesitate to call Brosmer a third string quarterback, but anyway, I mean, the star of this team really
looked like. Do you remember a couple of years ago, Southampton were hoodwinked when Graham Souness was manager, and they ended up signing like a distant cousin of George Weah's, and he looked like he had never played football in his life. I think they put him on for about 5 minutes and they took him straight off. Max Brosmer looked like the NFL version of that guy. Like, where did this guy go to college?
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't want to say there's a dearth of talent at quarterback in the league, but there's a severe drop off between kind of middling quarterbacks and what pretend to be second or third stringers. So, I mean, it was a tough draw for him, because he just happened to pull the short straw and come up against the Seahawks defense and have to play against Ernest Jones and Devon Witherspoon, Byron Murphy, and DeMarcus Lawrence, and those monsters who will probably go on a deep run into the playoffs. So, I mean, Kirk Cousins at this stage, he's probably just auditioning for another team, maybe to prolong his career if he wants to do that. Raheem Morris is scrambling. The Falcons are at the stage where coaches are just scrambling and trying to save the jobs. The front office is trying to keep asses in seats and sell those flags that they wave at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There's nothing much left for the Falcons right now. Their season, to all intents and purposes, is over. Bijan Robinson, I mean, I know he had 142 yards on the ground and a touchdown last week, but between him and Pitts, that's all the teams can kind of back against right now. I mean, Pierce is a decent pickup from the draft, so there's not a lot to sell if you're a Falcons fan. It's really going to be for me, it's going to be a fairly pedestrian win. The Seahawks are -7 favorite, but I mean, I think it's going to be by more than that. It could be by 14, 17. I don't think there's going to be much opposition for a Seahawks team who are hitting the right notes right now with players who are just excelling in all facets. So I can't see anything other than a fairly easy pedestrian win for the Seahawks.
Yeah, Seahawks, as we've talked about before several times, are the last team that you want to welcome in your building. They are phenomenal on the road. They have the best away record of any team in the NFL this year, and that seems to have been a theme under Mike McDonald's leadership for as long as he's been coach there. That stretches back into last season as well. The one thing I'm going to be watching for here is, can we see an upturn again in the performance level of Sam Darnold? 2 weeks ago, obviously, had a poor game against the Rams, and they ended up being tied in that one anyway. Their defense kept them in it, as their defense will tend to do. And this could be, to your point, Kieran, a very pedestrian win, because the Seahawks are very good at locking offenses down. No Seahawks receiver went for more than 21 yards last week, to be fair, because they just didn't need it. Jackson Smith and Jigma had 17. Cody White was their receiving leader with 21 yards. Cooper Kupp only had 13. Like, they just did not need to throw the ball. So Darnold, I think, went, let me just check the box score quickly here. He went 14 of 26 for 128 yards. I mean, that's fine because the Seahawks didn't need it, but you're going to need to see some Sam Darnold form before the end of the regular season. We all have that memory, and I'm sure he does too, that he'll want to erase of what happened in the big battle for the number 1 seed game when he was playing with the Vikings last year and just laid an egg against the Lions, and then followed that up by being absolutely dismantled by the Rams the following week. Obviously, not all of that is on him. He had a Brian Flores defense to thank for getting in his face against the Vikings it wasn't. I'm completely mixing up my metaphors here. It was the Rams defense did a number on him in the playoffs, of course, and he's now gone from the Vikings to the Seahawks. Yeah, get your team straight, Connor. But I want to see is there life in that dog, and is he rounding into the kind of form that he's going to need to be in if the Seahawks are going to be a threat in the playoffs? I don't think any of us doubts that they're going to get there. I don't think anybody particularly wants to play them, but it's ironic that as well as he's played this season, there's still kind of grumblings that Darnold might be the weak link, and his performance level over the last 2 weeks hasn't done anything to dispel that. I'd like to see him step up this week. I don't think it's going to be much of a challenge for the Seahawks overall, but I want Sam to show me something. That's my main factor of interest in this game. Otherwise, as you said, Kieran, and I can't think of a better synonym for it, pedestrian-looking victory for the Seahawks. Shane?
I'm sure Chris Shula won't mind being you comparing him to Brian Flores. In fairness to him, future New York Giants head coach Chris Shula? Question mark. In terms of this game, yeah. Seahawks going to win the Battle of the Birds quite easily.
All right, let's get into some quick picks with due apologies to the Titans, Browns, Commanders, and Vikings, but time is money. Titans, Browns, I have got Browns in this one. Shane?
I'm interested to see who's picking the Titans in this one. I'm taking the Browns.
Yeah, remember the Titans? Not so much. Kieran?
Yeah, I'd love to take the Titans, but I mean, two poor offenses in the Browns will be the slightly better of the two worst ones.
Commanders, Vikings, given what we said about Max Brosmer, I think the Commanders got a real shot here. Kieran?
Yeah, even with a doubt about Jaden Daniels, I mean, there's still enough of this could beat up Commanders team. I mean, I know the Vikings defense is great, but offense is putrid.
Shane?
Yeah, I think the Commanders actually didn't play a bad game on Sunday Night Football with Marcus Mariota playing under center as Mike Tirico made sure he pronounced that correctly.
How many years in the league, and finally people learned that his name is pronounced Mariota.
Yeah, that is the quality NBC brings. But yeah, I'm taking the Commanders in this one.
All right, we'll take a quick break.
You know great odds, you're in control, you always bet responsibly, and you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
So many games, of course, given the time of the year that's in it, that have serious playoff implications. One of the ones near the top of the bill is Colts Jags in Jacksonville. Big game for you, Kieran. You're going to be there in attendance for us, and an exciting one to have. Not much to choose between these teams. Jags have been on a roll, quietly gone around, turning 3 victories on the spin, which has a much improved atmosphere in Jacksonville, and they'll be looking to take down a very shaky looking Colts over the past couple of weeks, who are struggling to recapture their early season promise.
Yeah, the Jags will never have a better chance to put a stamp on the AFC South. Like you said, I mean, the Jags have won 3 out of 4, or won 3 straight for the last 5, and the Colts, obviously, we know their struggles, losing 2 straight, and have looked anything but solid. Colts actually, interestingly, have not won in Jacksonville since 2014. A stat I wasn't fully aware of until I saw it, which is kind of testament to how the AFC South has been the last decade. Yeah, huge chance for Jacksonville. I mean, they're going to want to have to get the most out of this game and get that W, because this division is quietly becoming one of the most fascinating in the division. We all talk about the North, the AFC North, and nobody wants to claim a spot in it. Well, the AFC South is doing a very good impression of all that. And nobody had the Texans really given any shot over the last couple of weeks, but they've been clawing back into it. I remember the Texans, I think it was week 2 when they played the Bucs really tight, and they almost found a way to come back. And this is when Baker was in his element and just running up and down the field. And at that stage, I was like, you know what? They're just that perennial kind of also ran. They're almost there and they're almost quite there, but they're just not there. And for me, the Colts are one of those teams that are going to have to take that kind of frame of mind as well. Since putting up 244 yards and 3 touchdowns in Germany, Taylor has gone 143 yards and 0 touchdowns in 3 games since. And it's not going to get any easier for the Jags. Jags are the best run defense in the league. Just 82.4 rushing yards against per game, and the other thing is 76% of their touchdowns that they've given up have been passing touchdowns. So things have started to come right for the Jags. And they're really kind of solidifying that spot in the division, in the fact that they're winning games that they would have lost. I mean, we've seen the overtime wins they've had in the last month. Those games are traditionally games that Jacksonville loses. But they're starting to hum on offense as well. I talk about it all the time. When Etienne and Tootin get the ball and they run for over 100 yards, you can almost guarantee a win. And you can subtly see over the last, probably since the Texans game, Cohen has kind of quietly taken the ball out of Lawrence's hands and put it on the run game. And we've seen less errors and less errant throws from Lawrence. He's still obviously prone to those, but there's been a lot more of the run game. I think Cohen has put more faith in that and put more faith in the ability of Etienne and Tootin to kind of not just control the clock, but to kind of keep the other teams on the back foot. Lawrence has been, he's still only completing about 60% of his passes, and I think Cohen's trying to take the ball out of his hand and not be that kind of difference maker in a negative light. For me, the difference is going to be the Jags' run defense. I think Taylor, if the Colts obviously are to have any chance, Taylor's going to have to run up and down the field. We know Daniel Jones' fibula injury and the story about that. But for me, it's going to have to be what the Jags' run defense can do against Taylor. We all know what he can do. It's going to be good weather in Jacksonville, a nice surface. And it should be a pretty free-flowing game. I think there should be, points out there. I think the Colts, last time I looked, Colts are a 1.5 point favorite. I'd probably stay with that. I think this game is a classic field goal kind of feel to it. I think the Jags can hold on. They've got the Colts once more in Indianapolis towards the end of the season, so they're really going to need this when it comes down to tiebreakers and all that other fun stuff towards the end of the season. So, long story short, I think the Jags will just about win this, and it's going to be the defense and the job that Campanelli's done. I think they're just going to dial up all the right plays and keep the Colts on their feet. Colts have not been great. Another statistic, not been great on grass. They lost to the Chiefs on grass, and they've struggled on that surface, and they've struggled outdoors too. So we'll see how they get along. But obviously, huge props to Jones for getting out there, even with that fibula injury. But I think it might be the way that Jags defense is coming at people lately. That might be a tough afternoon for him. So I do like the Jags. I like them by a field goal in this game.
I'm a bit slow sometimes when I'm on the grass myself, but that's a whole different story. Shane, the Colts seem to have offended the football gods. They had a chance a couple of weeks ago to make a statement and put the nail in the coffin of the Chiefs' playoff ambitions. They kind of went conservative. They turtled up, and the football gods don't like that sort of thumbing of the nose, and they seem to have been punished the last couple of weeks. They need badly to kind of get it back on track here because, as Kieran said, the Texans are coming. The Jags have rounded into form nicely. It's over to you, Daniel Jones, and your Colts to go and get back to where you were.
Yeah, I think the Colts of that particular matchup in Kansas City was a situation where, you came up the ranks to play senior hurling. But then if you're going to play senior hurling, you better play senior hurling. Don't try to play within yourself. You have to try and keep pushing yourself to the extent that they were. And look, one of the biggest differences between the first period of the season when they built up all of this steam versus the last 4 weeks when they've lost 3 games and they had to go to overtime in Germany against the Falcons has just been the form of Jonathan Taylor. I think it was JJ Watt on the comms last week that said when Jonathan Taylor scores a touchdown, the Colts are 7-0. When he doesn't score a touchdown, they lose. Except for I think it was the one game that they won when he doesn't. And another key aspect of that is the fact that they were really, really efficient on first and second down in that early period of the season. The last 4 weeks, they've been very inefficient on first and second down because they haven't got the run game going sufficiently enough. and they try to rely on the Daniel Jones pass game and realize that actually, if you try to get the Jones pass game to be the sort of main thrust of your offense when Jonathan Taylor isn't running the ball well, it becomes much easier to defend, and teams have a better time with it. And then that may lead you to start making decisions to go for passes, which are more conservative because they're shorter down the field, and it completely undoes what the Colts are able to do. We saw that in Kansas City. We saw that last week against the Texans. Again, really good defense is playing there. The Colts defense, I think, is going to have to go out and win this game, because I'm actually not confident in the Colts offense to do it. In fairness, the Colts are top 5 in pass rush. They're the first most sacks in the league. They held the Texans to 2-5 in the red zone. In fairness, and their run defense is pretty solid. Now, in fairness, they haven't faced a lot of sort of 2 tight end offenses in the way that Jacksonville often deploys. So they're not going to, their sort of upfront defense might have a bit more to get around Jacksonville than they have in previous games of the season. So that might be difficult. Brenton Strange, obviously, quite important there. But I think the Jags have enough just to quite simply go and sort of take this pretty early on. The AFC South, by the way, is probably the most slept-on division in the league. I agree with Kieran earlier. This division always brings out these fantastic matchups and heats up really at the right time. And often the difference makers is one player who comes in as a trade. And this year, and I slagged him off on the trade deadline day, and he's trying to prove me wrong. Jakobi Meyers, I think, has had a big impact. He's had 50 yards in each of the last 3 games. He's making big plays at big moments. He's the reason why the Jags were able to score 25 plus points in the last 5 games, and they were really becoming much more efficient in the red zone, whilst at the same time having a run defense that's in the top 10 in the league in the last 5 weeks. All the pieces are there for Jacksonville to go and do it, and I just don't trust the Colts defense enough to be aggressive enough often enough to give them the real chance to do it. Like the Colts' real chance is going to come with some form of turnover, or Trevor Lawrence is doing stupid things and then being able to punish afterwards, because their run game mightn't necessarily get going on early here. There's a lot that could go wrong for Jacksonville, but if Trevor Lawrence just stays clean and sticks to the plan and doesn't do anything too out of the ordinary, I think we're going to see the Jags atop the AFC South by the end of this weekend.
I would agree with that, and I think for the very same reasons that it's why Jacksonville will win. To Baltimore we go next, where the Steelers go to the Ravens. Oh, talk about high stakes here. The AFC North, as we were saying, a division that has 3-4 laggard teams in it. Nobody seeming to want to even end up with a winning record the way they're going at the moment, let alone take it by storm and win the division. Steelers travel to the Ravens, who are 6-point favorites here. Both of these teams coming off the back of letdown losses, both of them really stumbling in recent weeks. It's a question of who you trust to start turning the corner. I think the alarming thing from a Ravens point of view has been the form of Lamar since returning from injury, just not at the level that we'd expect him to be at this time of the year. You look at the Steelers and you think Renegade was booed last week. First signs of calls from the Steelers faithful for Mike Tomlin to be fired. He's been under pressure before. He's been in this situation before. Many times we've wondered whether that streak of winning seasons is going to come to an end. They've always found a way. They do seem to be up against it in a way that I don't really remember them being before. And I do have serious concerns about just the Steelers' inconsistency, particularly on defense, where, as we were saying on Monday, they have all these high-paid players. They have all these players who are remunerated at a level where they should be given it 110% every single week. That just hasn't happened often enough. I'd be worried about the toll that the season has taken on Aaron Rodgers as well, still recovering from that left non-throwing hand injury, but that does seem to have hampered him. Man, when he got that hit last week, he suddenly looked every one of his 42 years. It's so striking how young and mobile and agile he looked early on this season, how well he was moving, how well he was able to make those plays out of the pocket that Arthur Smith was demanding from him. The Steelers' offense has just looked more and more moribund in the last few weeks. We mentioned particularly against the Bears, you have a team that had no linebackers. They just didn't seem to be able to scheme up a way. And I know it was Mason Rudolph rather than Aaron Rodgers that week, but they just didn't seem to be able to scheme up a way to take advantage of it. And it just really concerns me that on both sides of the ball, the Steelers seem to have stalled at precisely the wrong time of the season. Obviously wasn't particularly impressed to see the Ravens get taken apart by the Bengals last week. They also seem to have slumped at just the wrong time. Whose slump is the deepest? Who's able to turn the corner and get out of it the quickest? I don't know which team that I'm necessarily going to put my house on, but I do trust the Ravens to defend their own house just about. I don't think they're quite worthy of being 6-point favorites, but I think they will get it done. Shane.
Yeah, I find this game difficult to read because there are two teams you actually just don't know what form they're going to turn up in actually all four phases of the game. I think the Steelers offense, one of the big things which has been holding them back is the fact that they actually they haven't been making a lot of explosive passes. I think in the last 4 weeks there's only been one play where they've passed the ball over 20 yards and completed it. That doesn't mean that Aaron Rodgers trying to play through the injury and play through the criticism doesn't manage to find ways to reignite things, but it's difficult. It really is difficult to see that. And it's funny, after the game in Dublin, Mike Tomlin was like, I think it's a really good thing that we're having our bye week in week 5. And I was like, really? You want to play as many games as early as you can before this Aaron Rodgers thing just starts losing legs. And that's just the nature of the season. And that bye week seems a long time ago now for him. Now, in fairness, like in the previous games, they've been consistently allowed to put up over 25 points. It's not a complete disaster, even though last week against Buffalo, it felt like a complete disaster. And of course, all the pressure is coming on Mike Tomlin and everything else. It's against the Ravens team, but yes, they've got 3 days extra rest because they played on Thanksgiving last week as opposed to Sunday. But it's just unusual in terms of what they're planning on offense because their run game in Lamar Jackson, as in what you can get from him from the run game, isn't what it was. They're not using as many quarterback design runs. When he's scrambling, he's not as effective. The passing game, he doesn't feel like himself. He's making a lot of silly errors, but they're not using Derrick Henry. He only got 10 carries against Cincinnati, which I thought was bizarre. And I still don't know whether they're going to go in and do that because the Ravens have consistently shown us in the last couple of years that they have all the right pieces, but quite often come in with the wrong plan. And I just think that
I wondered, Shane, to your point there, I think it's a really interesting one. Did the Ravens go into that Cincinnati game with the win bagged? And did they think we need to save our best stuff for the Steelers? We'll do just enough to get through this one, fatally underestimate the Bengals in the process?
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't. And I don't know. It just felt like, I mean, obviously, this is still a situation where their offensive line isn't playing well. They usually give up 3 or 4 sacks and let Lamar sort of go under a lot of pressure. Things aren't completely rosy, even though there was a tear that the Ravens were on where they were kind of coming back with a vengeance. To me, I think the key for this game is what the Steelers defense does. We've seen the Steelers defense prove a lot of times that they're not worth the money they're getting paid. They're the most expensive unit in the league. Mike Tomlin, of course, getting booed. He's a defensive coach. You want to see some of the attempts at tackling and how bad they let the Bills run game go through last week. It really would not shock me if they come out this week and played a superb game where they got 5 or 6 turnovers, as they've done periodically this year. The 5 turnovers against New England, the 5 turnovers I think they got against Indianapolis, but in between it's going these sort of quiet runs. And I think that against a Ravens team who have been sloppy when it comes to Lamar, aren't using Derrick Henry enough, have a bad offensive line, that I think the Steelers frontline players have enough talent to go and actually put a target on Lamar's back and really pressure him. I think they will just be able to upset the play enough and get enough turnovers, even if this is like a 10-7 type game. If there's one of those 4 units that I think can put up a good performance today, I think Mike Tomlin and everybody who's telling him you need to leave after being head coach in 2007, and the defense and everybody else, this is the game that's going to shut people up. And I'm trusting the Steelers to go and get this one. I understand I'm in a minority in thinking that, but that's the one unit I think is going to play well this week.
Oh, and they can roar all the way to a 9-8 finish. Kieran.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens on this. I think they, again, it's a talent thing for me. I think they got too much on offense. Mark Andrews getting a new contract. He's getting hot at the right time. So I like the Ravens.
Saints Bucks next, another quick big game. Nobody got time for that. It's Bucks for me as the 8.5-point favorites. Very hard to look past them. Shane.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Charlie Smith play in Florida for the second week running, but hopefully the Saints offense plays well enough to give him a chance because they were beyond awful last week. It's funny that when obviously the New Orleans Saints algorithm has gotten onto my Twitter this week, and there's a lot of people pushing the Tyler Shook propaganda, and I'm like, lads, you picked the 5 good throws he's made over 3 games. They look great, but that's just not how that offense will be playing. They've put up less than 18 points in most of the games they've played this year, and they're not going to put up more than 18 against the Buccaneers. So give me the Bucs here.
Kieran?
Bucks are 6-1 against the Saints under Todd Bowles. Baker's just starting to get his boys back again. Everyone's getting healthy. Bucky Irvin's back. Godwin. Everyone's training for the Bucks, and you're playing against a team that's got basically Chris Olave as your main weapon. That's not enough for me. It's going to be a fairly easy. I think it's 8.5 point favorite. It's probably going to be a 2 touchdown win for the Bucks when all said and done. All
right, fabulous Baker boys across the board for us. We're into the 9 o'clock window now, and an AFC West clash, which sees the Broncos travel to the Raiders. Kieran, the Broncos carrying 7.5 points with them, expected to triumph comfortably in this one, but comfortably is not necessarily how they do things. And in a division rivalry, I wonder, are people underestimating how difficult the Broncos can make things for themselves?
Well, I mean, they have been making things difficult for themselves, but the thing is, they're still grinding out these wins. I mean, it's another overtime win last week. Again, we talked about that earlier in the season, how Peyton was losing these 1-2 point game, these 1-score games, and now he's doing the exact opposite. They're just running the table and not wowing anybody with style points, and not making any headlines with circus catches or 50-yard bombs down the field. But it's the National Football League, and they're winning games, and it's a hard thing to do. That's the old cliche, and that's what they're doing. And Bo Nix is just marching along, doing what he needs to do. Not a huge amount of pressure on him, so far this season. Cortland. It's funny that Sims or Cortland Sutton and Mims have been used sparingly, really, and it's really been the ground game that they've taken the most out of. I mean, I can't see anything other than a I don't want to say pedestrian again. I've used it already, but I mean, this Raiders team is there's a paucity on offense. I mean, you got Ashton Jeanty, who's just being destroyed out there. He's being ragdolled behind whatever that O line is, and it's hard to watch this offense. It's hard to watch Geno just getting slapped around too. I mean, he's got 14 interceptions already on the season. It's hard to see somebody like him out there and trust in an offense with him behind center. We know about the defense. They're able to make some plays from time to time, but I mean it's really going to be it's in Denver as well. So for me it's going to be all Denver. They're just kind of catching that wave right now. They're just coasting along. I'd love to see the Raiders put up some sort of a fight, because again, there's going to be that dysfunction talked about in Vegas with coaching, and we saw all the stuff with Chip Kelly earlier on the week before last. There's going to be questions about Pete Carroll too, I'm sure. Questions about his age, about his ability to keep going at this stage. They're going to want somebody maybe younger, or who knows what's going to go on in Vegas. Craziness follows the Raiders around no matter what city they're in. But for me, the Broncos have got too much across the board. I mean, we all know that defense too. I mean, you put up that defense against the Raiders defense, it's night and day. For me, it's going to be a fairly easy Broncos win. I'm looking across the board to see where any upsets are going to come. But again, like I said earlier, you're looking at teams who are 2-10, 3-9. They're looking for reasons to get fans in the stadium. Vegas is a destination, so they're not going to struggle putting bums in seats. But I mean, the product that they're putting out there is not what people are going to want to see. It's a poor team in Vegas. And I don't think the Broncos are going to have much difficulty taking care of them on Sunday.
Yeah, you stole my whole team there, because I was just about to say it's such a shame that a team based where it is has so little star power. And it has been both fascinating and also poignant watching guys like Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty and Max Crosby doing everything that they can within their power. Absolutely sensational catch by Brock Bowers last week in a losing effort. These guys have continued to show up in the most difficult of circumstances week in and week out. They don't have any problem putting bums on seats in Allegiant Stadium, as you say, Kieran, because it's visiting teams, fans who go to Vegas for the weekend to keep that place rocking. I think they will be rocked, to your point, by the Broncos, who, as you say, always seem to do just about enough. And we were saying on the show on Monday, if they were a more experienced team that had Super Bowl success behind them, you'd look at them and you go, this is a team that's right within its comfort zone, winning in third and fourth gear, and they're ready to ramp it up when they get to the playoffs. Well, we haven't seen them do that yet, and we don't know whether they can do it. But what we are seeing week in, week out is a team with so many playmakers all across the board. I know that people have still got a little bit of a question mark in some quarters about Bo Nix and whether he is the guy who's going to lead you on a deep playoff run, regardless of whether they manage to clinch the number 1 overall seed or not. But you see those little flashes, like that pass he hit almost off his knees to Franklin in the end zone for the touchdown last week. You see Nick Benito showing up all over the place on defense and just at the right time to help them clinch that victory last week. That pass rush is formidable, as we were saying in our chat with Ron Rivera, which you can check out on our podcast platforms or check out on YouTube if you get a chance, if you haven't seen it already, how the Broncos are on track to beat the sack record set by the 85 Bears. This is just an absolutely scarifying defense that they're able to put out in the field. The offense doing just about enough, and just about enough isn't enough. That just about enough doesn't need to be an awful lot to beat the Raiders, to the point we've all been making. And it's hard not to see them, even in the realm where they're only winning games by 1 score and getting last-minute field goals here and there, that they will need to be quite pushed to that level to beat this Raiders team in Vegas and get out with their 12th win on the board, which is hard to believe at this stage of the season. Shane?
Yeah, do you remember the Top Gear cool wall? I'm going to have one now of all the teams where on one end it's the real contenders, then there's the hot streak, then there's the mess, and then at the other end there's the complete frauds. If the Broncos play another 10-7 boring game against the Raiders like they did on Thursday Night Football a few weeks ago, I think on Berlin week, I'm moving them back towards the fraud zone, but I have a funny feeling that's not going to happen, and they're going to come away with one of the more comprehensive wins of their season.
We're streaking. We never miss a genuine opportunity. Right, we'll take a quick break.
Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
Rams taking on the Cardinals in the next game up in the desert. Kieran, the Rams upended by the Panthers last week, so they shouldn't be taking anything for granted, even against a Cardinals team that looks pretty much dead and buried like so much else in the desert.
Insert your Joe Pesci casino metaphors as well. The Cards are dead and buried out there. I mean, the thing with the Cards is the season was semi-resurrected when Jacoby Brissett came in. I mean, that is such a damning indictment on the previous quarterback. So I think the fact that Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he threw another 300 yards against the Bucs last week. I mean, he's a weapon out there. I think he threw it 40 times. I mean, this is a guy who's scrambling for, not just for his job, but to resurrect the team who's basically been dead since week 2. I mean, the Cardinals are I mean, talk about teams that never got off the starting blocks. But like you said, the Rams are going to be smarting after last week against the Panthers. They're going to want to, shake that off. They should be. They're going to be thinking to themselves, we should be one of those 10-2 teams right now. We should be kind of flexing muscles at the top of the NFL mountain. I mean, they're 14-3 against the Cards under McVay. He's got an ability to put teams like this away. I mean, the Panthers are a great story. They're not a great team, but you know what? They put up a hell of a fight against the Rams last week, and you got to tip your hat to what they did. But the Rams will definitely think that that's a game that they should have put away. I mean, there was some interceptions, some fumbles. It was a down week for Stafford. He had that strip sack later on in the game as well, so he's going to be smarting after that. But I mean, the thing with the Panthers is they have the personnel and the coaching to disrupt the Rams. The Cardinals at this stage do not. I mean, Gannon's fighting for his life. The defense, who has been from week to week, showed some signs of life, and that's a credit to them. And we talk about the Browns still fighting and throwing haymakers at this stage, but the Cards have had some decent performances on defense, but they just don't have enough. They don't have enough weapons out there. I mean, they did. I mean, last week they had 69 total tackles. I mean, they got Calais Campbell and Cody Simon and Budda Baker and Josh Sweat. Sweat had a great game, but is that going to be able to be replicated against a team with the caliber of the Rams? I mean, they're just. I'd like to say last week was a blip, and I'm hoping it is, because I'd love to see the Rams go deep in the playoffs and do some damage there. But I mean, can you see any other outcome? I mean, they're going to be smarting after the defeat, and they're going to be looking to get the ball into Puka's hands and get Kyren Williams running up and down the field for his trademark 100 yards, 1 touchdown game. To me, it's just going to be a factor of can the Cardinals even get going with the ball with Brissett? Yes, he's going to throw the ball a huge amount of times, but that defense is just going to be waiting for that ball sailing in the air. And the run game if they can get it going, is going to get stuffed by Poona Ford and Braden Fisk and Kobe Durant, and Cam Curl, and all the other superstars that they have on defense. It's a tough time in the desert. Like I said, like I've been saying all podcast, all show, there's teams right now that are scrambling. They're 2-10, 3-9. They're just trying to get reasons to get people in the seats. Glendale, Arizona is not exactly a destination like Vegas is, but the Cardinals are going to have to find some way of getting people into the stadium to watch these games. Coaches are fighting for their lives. Players are fighting for their futures in the NFL. So despite the fact that they're not favored or they're not given much chance, the Cardinals are going to fight. But I just don't think there's any way that they're going to be able to compete. And it's going to be one of those trademark, maybe keep it close, start of the third quarter, and then you see the Rams just eking away, and just probably bringing the second string guys in the fourth quarter when they're up by 21. Tough times in Arizona. Gannon's future, I mean, that'll be a discussion for another day. But it's a tough ask for the Cardinals to do anything against a stacked Rams team. I think that -8 is the line. This is another one of those. There's a couple of these games this week where could be a 15 or it could be a 14-21 win for the other team. This could be one of those ones where the Rams just light up and just go to ham or go to town on the Cardinals. So, long story short, I'll take the Rams with a fairly easy win today or on Sunday.
All right, and thanks to Rory for the props on the many, many tiresome film references I do like to drop into the commentary along the way. Shane, will there be any chance of raising Arizona, or will the Rams go dancing back to La La Land with the win?
Oh my God! How many of these are we gonna get from Letterboxd Brophy over here? My word! You need to set up the accounts to know all the movies that are coming up, so we know what you've watched recently, what kind of references we can expect coming up. Look, I'm not. Let's just look at the Rams as what they are over the course of the season, and not overreact to what happened on Sunday that's gone against the Panthers. I think we give credit to the Panthers for just coming up with a fantastic sort of ding-dong performance. The reason why 17-0 teams don't happen in the league is because even the great teams come up with these games that just turn into balls of chaos and become a shootout. The lead changed in that game 6 times? And it was a rare occasion when Matt Stafford threw 2 interceptions after going from weeks 3 through 13 without throwing an interception at all. I mean, like, that doesn't reduce my stock in the Rams or make me think any less that they're going to go into Arizona and just be dominant from start to finish against the Cardinals, who, in fairness, their pass defense wasn't the worst against Baker Mayfield last week. They've been keeping teams close. They haven't let themselves be completely blown out. And apart from against their other NFC West opponents, the Seahawks and the Niners a few weeks ago. But I mean, like, I'm not sitting back here and thinking, oh, this is the start of the Rams' collapse now. They still have of all the pieces there, and Nakua is still going to be used in a nice way. Stafford is going to come in and play a tidy game to try to make up for last week. That defense is still pretty strong, is going to get on top of what the Cardinals do. And just the way that the Cardinals have been playing without Kyler Murray, just leaves them open to being intercepted a lot. And I think that we might see a couple of turnovers pretty early in this game. So, yeah, it is a simple enough one that I think the Rams are going to come away with and start pulling away with early, actually.
Yeah, very hard, very, very hard to see an upset here. If you were looking for an upset this week at all, I would agree with that. I think it's Rams too. Oh, it's to Lambeau we go. I got a lot on the line here. I said I'd go shirtless on Monday and we'd emulate the Ben Johnson locker room scene if the Bears we beat the Packers. And then I went into the picks and I picked the Packers to win. But, showstopper. I've been thinking about this all day and I've been mulling it as we've been talking. And you know what? I would rather pick the Bears and be wrong than pick the Packers and be right. I'm going to change my pick, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you got to believe in your team. It's taken me long enough to get to a point where I have any level of belief in the Bears. It's been a long journey to get here, and if I only get to enjoy it for 2 or 3 more days, then so be it. I'm looking at this offensive line, and I know Christmas is coming up. And if I'm Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback, I'm looking at this offensive line, and I'm feeling all Calvin Harris about this one. I feel so close to you right now. It's a force field. They've been an absolute force field for him all season long, and for this running game. The way they got DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monungai going against the Eagles, and as we know, that Eagles defensive front, however the Eagles may have tripped and stumbled in recent weeks, is still no easy obstacle to shift. That's the foundation of everything that they want to do on that side of the ball. The Bears completely disrupted it, went into Lincoln Financial Field and absolutely spanked them. I don't think the Eagles have been beaten like that in a long time. I know they've lost games this season, but not in that fashion. The thing that I've seen from the Bears week on week is that they are improving. I think the Packers have been more inconsistent. There's no doubt about it. The Packers are the more talented team of the two. But there's also no doubt about it in my mind that the Bears are closer to being a complete version of what they can be than the Packers are right now. That's not to say that I don't think the Packers can get there or that they're not a threat. This team has a Super Bowl ready roster. And when they're at it, as Jordan Love was last week, when he produces the kind of game that he can, they're very difficult to stop. I'm very scared about this Packers defense, and it's the supreme test that the Bears will have faced in terms of what that newly reconstituted and much more solidified offensive line has faced this season. Micah Parsons got 12 and a half sacks. I mean, remember when we were talking about whether Micah Parsons was settling into that Packers defense and whether it was the right move for all that draft capital? Look at how that talk is quieted now. He's the game wrecker in Green Bay that he was in Dallas, and absolutely looks like the missing piece when everything slots into gear. I'm starting to think about the Packers the way I thought about the 49ers a couple of years ago. I think they're this beautifully engineered machine. The question is, can they still operate when you get grit in the machinery? The Bears' job this weekend is to put grit into the machinery. I still have my doubts over this opportunistic Bears defense. They lead the league in takeaways. They lead the league in interceptions. I love the way they play. I love the way they fly to the ball. I'm not necessarily a believer in the consistent quality of how they go from down to down. They put themselves in alarming situations and they bail themselves out with turnovers. A lot of that is down to hustle, and I do get that, but it's also not sustainable. I worry about that going into this weekend, but I'm going to believe for one more week. It's Chicago for me. Shane.
Someone call Craig and tell him to change the graphics before you go out and you've been exposed as somebody who originally thought the Packers would win. I'm on the Bears believe train as well, and it's not because I'm trying to sort of manifest some sort of rematch of Super Bowl 20, although that would
although you are trying to manifest a rematch
that would be incredible. That being said, having Chicago and Boston fans in the same room arguing over whether Fenway or Wrigley is the real best ballpark. But anyway, it's interesting, actually. The last time the Bears were number one seed this far into the season was 2006 when they made the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of good omen behind them. But I think just look at Ben Johnson, and I'm going to really focus in on him for a second and what he's been able to do in terms of building the offensive line, building the culture, building a run game, which in motion has been really, really effective. Getting the most out of a 7th-round pick in Kyle Monangai, as we saw against the Eagles. And look at what are the layers that you build when you are trying to build something. You reverse the DNA in that Chicago have gone from making a mess of these tight one-score games to finding ways to win one-score games, including games that they shouldn't be winning. Then you get to the next stage. You go into the reigning Super Bowl champions, NFC contenders, and dominate them in their backyard on prime time. The next step now is making sure you reverse the ownership and go into Lambeau Field and get the second win in 2 seasons. If a bad Chicago Bears team can go into Lambeau and win, maybe a good Chicago Bears team can go in and win as well. And I just think that what the Bears are doing, I think, really puts them in the best position to do that. I mean, their defense is first in interceptions against Jordan Love, who hasn't thrown a lot of interceptions this year, but throws a lot of interceptable passes, I think it's fair to say. And another thing as well, people look at the Packers saying, oh, Thanksgiving, they beat the Lions. That puts them in a really good position. You know what the Lions don't have anymore? Ben Johnson, who was Packers are 1-5 against the Ben Johnson offense in the 3 years that he was offensive coordinator at the Detroit Lions. I think he has their number a little bit on being able to decode them in the way that Detroit doesn't currently have. So, look, Jordan Love and that Packers offense been able to put up over 29 points in 9 of the last 12. If a 19-3 touchdown interception rate, the Packers are going to bring a lot to this game. It's going to be close. I think this could be a more offensive battle and defensive one, despite the surroundings and the time of year. And I understand that the pass game in Chicago isn't the best. Ben Johnson said it himself. We're winning in spite of our pass game, not because of it. Caleb Williams needs to become more efficient, but his decision-making is good enough that makes me trust that if it gets into a close game, if it gets to a point where the Chicago needs a field goal to win it, I think they actually could do it. So for that reason, I'm going to pick the Bears to win this one, and I did so at the start of the week. So Craig, my picks can say the same on the graphic.
Two of us going with the 6.5 point dogs. Kieran.
Well, it was Friday. I was sitting on the couch with my fixins after Thanksgiving. And I was watching the game with my son, and I was marveling at the beauty of a team stuffing the ball down the Eagles' throats. It was a beautiful thing. Monangai at 130 on the ground, Swift at 125 on the ground. And I marveled at the beauty of a team with a two-headed monster at running back, absolutely just taking the will out of a team. And it was a beautiful thing to see. The Bears, I mean, I've been on the fence with the Bears all season, like a lot of people, and, the Williams talk can be for another day, but that display and that just eating up the clock and taking the will, not just of the Eagles, but of the fans, leaving the stadium with 8-9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That for me was a standout moment. If you're a Bears fan, that would give me a huge amount of hope. I do like the Packers in this game, however, because of the weapons that Love has. I mean, the game's in Lambeau. I think it's just going to be one of those classic kind of, snowy games, real cold games where the ball is thrown around. I can't wait to see this game. I think it's going to be the game of the week, despite the fact that we've got two other really good ones coming up later. I think the Pack is just going to squeak through, but I think what the Bears did last week sends a real marker to the rest of the league that it's not just the Williams show where he's scrambling out the box and he's dunking out for 4 or 5 yards in the screen passes, but this run game. I mean, you got a kid, Monangai, a 7th-round pick out of Rutgers. We're not talking about LSU or Ohio State or a powerhouse. We're talking about a small college in New Jersey. And the fact that they were able to find somebody like him and turn him into an absolute beast with that ball in his hand says a lot about not just Johnson, what he can do, but about the front office and their ability to find talent in smaller football schools like Rutgers. So a lot to be hopeful for. If I was a Bears fan, I think it's going to be a shootout, and this is going to be one that just going to end up on the wrong side of. But should be a great game, and you still got to be high on the Bears this year.
I tell you what else looks like it might be a great game is Texans Chief in the Sunday Night Football slot, Kieran, where both teams have everything to gain, but also everything to lose. Genuine jeopardy in this one, and that makes it very, very tasty.
Yeah, the last couple of games in the slate this week are really, really good. I mean, you got Sunday Night Football, Chiefs in Arrowhead. I mean, this is this is prime Mahomes. This is what scares me because this is what gets the Mahomes motor going.
Let me tell everybody listening and watching. No man was more fearful when the Colts failed to put the Chiefs away 2 weeks ago than Kieran. Kieran's like, "Oh no, here we go again. You didn't kill them."
And they're still only
waiting for them to appear in Santa Clara now.
Right, and they're still only 6-6. I mean, I need one of those, leave the gun, take the cannoli moments.
So are you telling me they could be 6-7?
I would love it. They were 6-7, but to go with the movie references, I want the cannoli gone. I want the cannoli gone. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. I need the Chiefs to be taken care of because, I mean, we need different faces in the playoffs. We need the Bears, we need the Rams, we need these teams kind of making runs. And the fact that the Chiefs are still 6-6, still, I mean, it still worries me. It still, it still concerns me, and I'd love to see other teams coming through. The thing is that, the Chiefs, this is when they shine. It's under the bright lights of Sunday Night Football. It's Chris Collinsworth, Pacheco is back. This is where Kelsey and Mahomes make the bread and butter. This is where they've shone for years and years. And they're just going to play the hits. They're going to reel back the years, and it's just going to be Kelsey right now is 10 yards open. That's how it's going to be in the whole game, and I'm nervous about that. I mean, and the other thing is, we talk about their offense. They still have players like Leo Chanel and Chris Jones and Watson back there on defense too. So, but I'll get on to the Texans. I really, as much as I fear the Chiefs, I really love this Texans team and what they've been able to do this season and just fight through adversity. It's been, Stroud goes down. Let's get Mills in. Mills settles the boat. Woody Marks, he's been great. Now Marks has kind of gone off the boil. Let's get Chubb back in and contributing. Oh, we got Jaylen Warren. That's all. It's the ability to find these players to kind of keep everything going and to keep the ship afloat. We all know about the Texans defense. I think they're going to be able to keep the Chiefs in check to a large part. But do they have enough? I mean, Stroud, we know, came back last week, but does he have enough? Is he still kind of limber enough to be able to put damage on this, not just the Chiefs defense, but the rest, put up scores? And that's my concern, is they're able to put up enough points. We all know that Mahomes can go from scuffling and go for 3 and out, and then boom, it's a 45-yard pass to Rashee Rice like we've seen in the last couple of weeks. So my worry is that this Chiefs offense will just turn up when they need to turn up, and they'll make this magical run, and you know, the Colts had the chance, and you know, we thought the Cowboys did us a favor, but I just my worry is that the Chiefs they're not dead yet, and there's still life in this team, and I'd love to see the Texans put it up against them, but I just can't see that they've got enough on offense. Yes, the defense is great, and Anderson's phenomenal, and they've got all these playmakers that can stifle teams. But this is the Chiefs. This is not an ordinary team. This is a Chiefs team that is still alive, that is smarting, that kind of think that this is the perfect opportunity for us. We a lot of the league, and you listen to all the sports talk all week. Most pundits have got the Chiefs out. They're like, if the Chiefs lose this, they're out. I don't even think if they lose this, they're going to be out, because 6-7 is still a very manageable record to come back from. But God, I really want the Texans to put it up to them and win this game. This is just, we've seen this movie so many times before. It's reminiscent of the Pats in the aughts, or whatever, however we say, the 2000s. They're not dead until it's a carcass and there's a body bag being zipped up, and the Chiefs are not there yet. And I need the Texans to be able to keep it tight enough. However, I just think the Chiefs are going to turn it on, and it's the lights. It's Arrowhead. It's Kelsey, Pacheco, and Rashee Rice has been phenomenal the last couple of weeks. And I can only see a Chiefs win, unfortunately.
Shane, like, what a game this is. Like, the more we talk about it, the more I don't even know where to start and finish, because there's so much at stake. The Chiefs, for all of that went wrong in Arlington last week, at times Mahomes looked sensational and was playmaking at his absolute peak, and almost turned the game in their favor. The Texans defense, we've talked about time and time again, is ferocious and has kept them in the season, as much as Davis Mills has held down the fort as well as he could on offense. You got Stroud back now, you got Nico Collins back now. That connection almost back at the levels that it was even in that 1 week last week. It's all coming to the boil just about the right time.
Yeah, I've changed my mind about this game so much. Even actually, funny enough, I was doing another podcast today when 6-7 also came up and made me flip off my headphones. And I was coming into that one, and I was thinking, when I'm talking with the Chiefs here, I'm going to be like, I think this is the end for the Chiefs now for this season. I think we can start thinking about what's in the future. I mean, I don't know if you saw today, the nominees for the Walter Payton Man of the Year came out. Who's the Chiefs nominee? Travis Kelce. To me, that's I'm looking at that and saying, they're waiting until now to put it forward so he can get the one award that he hasn't gotten so far. So maybe he could walk off into the sunset after the end of this year, was being named Man of the Year, as he probably will. But then I come back into the car today, and I'm like, they're the Chiefs. They're going to find a way to do it. And of course, the Arrowhead factor is massive here. They're 5-1 at Arrowhead. They're 1-5 on the road. That's the way that their season has gone so far. And prime time as well. We've seen a lot of these primetime games when refereeing calls can really make their impact. And the Chiefs, I think, depending on who you ask, has definitely benefited from those last season when they all got on the right side of all these one-score games. And that's the thing. All of their losses this year has been for one score. Now, they're going in to this game with a lot of problems in offensive line. Trey Smith, right guard, is out. It's the second consecutive game out. Josh Simmons has been placed on injured reserve, and that only happened this week. And Jawan Taylor is dealing with ankle, knee, and tricep injuries, and he's keeping out of practice, but there's a good chance he actually mightn't be playing this week. And I don't know if you remember last year when these two teams played again in December. I think it was the Saturday before Christmas, and the Texans had no offensive line, and Stroud was left running for his life. And I just wonder with how good this Texans defense is in the front line and the problems that the Chiefs are having on offensive line, where we're going to see a reverse to that, where the Texans are going to try and get some form of revenge on Patrick Mahomes. But then I was just thinking, that's exactly the situation. Backs up against the wall at home in Arrowhead, and Patrick Mahomes is being asked to run for his life when he comes in clutch and makes plays. If you actually look, his playmaking is better this year than it has been in the last couple of years. It's the Chiefs' defense that's taking a step back because they haven't refreshed enough in their talent. A couple of individuals I don't think has been consistent enough. Chris Jones, I think, being one of those. That's the area which has been so strong in the last 2 years, which has not improved enough, and the offense is, has the potential to really spark with Kelsey and Rice and Brown and Pacheco and really go for it. But if you decide that you're actually going to put all of your front line to go try and running after Mahomes, and you leave enough space behind that Mahomes can be able to start picking out his guys and tearing you apart at key moments of the game, that's kind of what happened with Indianapolis in Arrowhead 2 weeks ago. The same kind of thing. They tried to put a lot of pressure on Mahomes. Mahomes decided, you know what? F this. I'm going to go win this game by myself. I'm going to run for it. I'm going to pass it to one guy who's free. I'm going to force it. And I'm going to try and make sure that we just about get over the line. And that's exactly how I see this game going right now. I could probably change my mind by Sunday, and I could feel better about the Texans' prospects. I think this is the ability to be a very, very close game. I'm tempted to stay up and watch it until 4 o'clock in the morning because it's a really, really exciting matchup. You know, we could see the end of the Chiefs here. I think if they do go to 6 and 7, that they will be done. Honestly, I think just the way that the head-to-heads roll. Now, I think that said, if the Jags win the AFC South, it actually helps them on head-to-heads, and there's a few other permutations like that. But I mean, if we're in that talk, they're as good as gone. So I think the Chiefs are going to find a way to pull out a late victory here.
Yeah, I'm calling a fatwa on mention of that horrific meme. The last thing you need is another middle-aged man mentioning that. Sorry, Shane, you're quite right to nearly rip off your headphones. Like you, I just really struggle to pick this one, and I keep looking at the Chiefs going, am I just unwilling to look past everything that I've seen historically and kind of not just accept that maybe they are dead, or do they have one last resurrection, backs to the wall type performance where Mahomes just finds a way? And I do think they probably just have at least one of those in them until I see otherwise, until I actually see the proof that they've been killed. Texans could be the team to do it, but I do think the Chiefs will escape for one more week. Monday Night Football sees the Eagles go on the road to face the Chargers, looking to bounce back from 2 consecutive defeats, as we mentioned, against both the Bears and the previous week against the Cowboys. This, to me, is a difficult one for the Chargers at this point in time. You can't but expect a response from the Eagles, not just because they've lost 2 games in a row, but because of the manner of that defeat at home. For all that we talked up what the Bears did and how they just opened up that Eagles defense and ran all over them and sucked their will, the Eagles can't take that line down. They have to come back and prove that they are no paper tiger, that the Super Bowl that they won last year still means something, and that they can shut their own fans up. First of all, the Boo Birds were out in force last weekend. Both coaches on both sides of the ball got to dust themselves off here. The play calling was poor in both respects. Jalen Carter looked absolutely gassed last week, and Vic Fangio kept him on for far too many snaps. Jihad Campbell didn't see the field at all. Just seemed very strange, and that kind of weird stubborn streak that some coaches get in sometimes. We talked about Mike Tomlin in that light a couple of times this season, where they just keep spamming the same button because it's worked so often in the past. You're like, no, you've been figured out. You need to do something different. You need to go against your own tendencies because they're just using it against you. That's what happened last week against the Eagles, or against the Bears rather. On the offensive side of the ball, I mean, you just struggle sometimes to trust Sirianni and what this offense can do. Jalen Hurts looks out of sorts. We've seen the AJ Brown discontent bubble up and bubble down over the course of the season. It's hard to figure out at this point whether the Eagles are in that mode that they were 2 years ago, where they're just going to collapse down the stretch, or whether they're in the mode where they were a year ago, where they will actually get it together because they've just got so much goddamn talent and because they match up so well against so many teams in so many ways. I think this is actually, I'm not going to call it a perfect game for the Eagles because the Chargers are no pushovers, but I just think they're banged up in all the wrong slots. I just see the struggles that they've been having on that O-line. I see Justin Herbert struggling for fitness this weekend, and it all sets up to me to be a recipe for a letdown game for the Chargers at home, that they can ill afford at this time of the season, and for the Eagles just about to squeak out with a win they very vitally need themselves to stay ahead of the Cowboys in the NFC East race. Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, obviously, yeah, the Eagles are going to be smarting from that performance against the Bears. I mean, they were outgained 425 to 317 yards. They went 4 for 12 on third downs. I mean, this offense that looked unstoppable and looked like it's everything is there for them. You got all the pieces that you need. They just can't get it together. And then we see during the week, poor old Patullo's getting his house egged by beautiful Philadelphia Eagle fans, just soul of the earth people.
So you're reminding me of the Annie Agar joke on this one, where it's like police are looking for suspects. They've already ruled out Jalen Hurts because the eggs actually hit the house.
Yeah. I mean, it's something has to be done with this Eagles offense because it's broken right now. They got to find a way to get the ball moving. I mean, and it comes down to Hurts. It really does. He's the orchestrator of what goes on in this offense, whether it's with his arm, whether it's with his feet. But they've got to get something figured out because there's way too many weapons. I mean, this team should be putting up 40 points a week. AJ Brown is an absolute monster. He's built like a brick shit house. Excuse my French. When you stand beside him, we saw him in New Orleans at the Super Bowl. He's immense. He's built like a defensive end. And you got Saquon Barkley, who's had, for whatever reason, has had a down year. I don't know what the factors involved are, but he's not getting the ball as much as usual. And then you got Devonta Smith, who's about 4'3", weighs about $110, but he's able to make these phenomenal catches, get rocked by a 300-pound defensive lineman, and get up and just brush himself off. They've got a phenomenal, obviously, array of talent on offense, but they just cannot figure it out. And whether that goes to Patullo or it goes to Sirianni, it doesn't matter. They have to figure it out. That it's too good to be like this right now. But the other thing that's causing, the other thing is Lane Johnson won't be playing, so that's going to be a big issue. But the other thing they've got to figure out is how are they going to regain face after the Bears smacked them up and down the field and punched them right in the jaw and ran against that front four that not just me, who've been singing about all season, but the rest of the league. I mean, they were just manhandled. It's like they were disinterested. It's like they had eaten too much for Thanksgiving. Jalen Carter is out of the game. We know that much. But they've got to regain not just some sort of credibility on the offense side, but they've got to figure out how have we gone from being this absolute monster on defense to having the Bears run 270-something yards on us on the ground. What happened in the space of the last couple of weeks? They've got to get it together. There's going to be a huge amount of Eagles fans. It's going to be one of those SoFi games where the road team is about 70-30 split of fans. I fully expect the Rams fans, because the Eagles fans, they travel everywhere. I fully expect it to be 70% Eagles fans. I think it's going to be a home game environment for them. This Chargers team, I don't trust. I know they've been fairly good last couple of weeks. Kamani Vidal has been a nice surprise. It looks like they're going to get Omarion Hampton back. Yes, they've got McConkey and Keenan Allen, but there's question marks about Herbert and his arm. Will Trey Lance come in? But this is a team that went to Jacksonville and put up 6 points and looked absolutely disinterested. And I can't believe that the team that got dog walked by the Jaguars about a month or so ago is going to be able to put it up against an Eagles team who's just in the corner right now like a beaten animal. And I can't see how they're going to go from that scenario to being able to put it up against an Eagles team who are just going to be coming out swinging. The other thing is the Chargers have only scored an average 23 points per game. The Eagles can do that in a quarter, and that's what concerns me. I think this is kind of similar to what we talked about with the Chiefs. I think this offense can light it up just like that. A.J. Brown, yes, he can look disinterested and be your quintessential diva wide receiver, but he can go off for 180 and 3 touchdowns just like that. So I think the Eagles are going to get it together. They've got no option because I don't think they'll be let back into Philadelphia if they don't get a win. I fully expect them to put up a huge performance in Monday Night Football. I think they're going to turn it around, much like the Chiefs. I think it's way, way, way too early to start talking about the demise of this team. It's still loaded on all ends of the football. And this just, this seems like one of those breakout Saquon games where he just, turns out 140 and a couple of touchdowns too. I have no faith in this Chargers team. I think they've been soft. They've a soft underbelly. They flattered to deceive a lot of the season. And I think they get exposed on prime time. And I think the Eagles get back to normal.
Shane, take us home. Who's going to win this one?
I think sometimes in life, to make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. And for that reason, I think the Eagles are going to win.
Okay, very good. Enjoy the Lions-Cowboys game if you're staying up to watch it tonight, or enjoy the highlights if you decided not to and you're listening back to us after the fact. We have our instant reaction on Monday morning after all these Week 14 games that we've just been previewing. So stay with us on the Irish NFL Show.